Being invisible was something you had grown used to. In a school filled with the rich, the beautiful, and the powerful, you were just there, a nameless shadow in the hallways of Taeyun Academy, a prestigious school where only the best of the best existed. Everyone had a role. The heirs of powerful families controlled the social hierarchy. The athletes ruled the sports fields. The geniuses aced every exam without breaking a sweat. The beautiful ones, they didn't even need to try. And then there was you. You weren't rich, you weren't particularly smart, you weren't breathtakingly beautiful. You were just a girl who existed, a nobody. No one noticed when you walked into a room, no one cared when you spoke, teachers barely acknowledged your presence. Even when you tried your best to blend in, it felt like you were too much and yet not enough. Your reflection was a constant reminder of why your dull brown eyes, your plain features, your quiet nature, it all screamed forgettable. While others spent their evenings at grand parties, you spent yours in the library, burying yourself in books because at least they didn't judge you. You had never been asked to dance at a school event, never been invited to a weekend getaway, never even had a friend who stuck around for long until the letters started appearing. Slipping into your locker like a whispered secret. They were beautiful, handwritten notes that made your heart race. I see you even when the world doesn't. You are more than you think you are. If only you knew how much I admire you. At first, you thought it was a joke, a cruel prank, but the words, they were too sincere, too tender. For the first time in your life, you felt seen, and there was only one person you could imagine writing them. John Jungkook. The school's untouchable bad boy, the one who walked through the halls like he owned them. Girls whispered his name like a prayer, and boys envied the effortless way he commanded attention. He wasn't just handsome, he was lethal, cold, distant, yet undeniably magnetic. And you convinced yourself that the way his eyes lingered on you sometimes, the way his expression softened just a fraction when you crossed paths meant something. That maybe, just maybe, you weren't as invisible as you thought, so you wrote him a letter. A confession. A mistake. Because the next morning you would realize just how foolish you had been. Your hands trembled as you slipped the letter into Jungkook's locker. This is it. You had spent weeks convincing yourself the handwriting, the way the letters spoke about loneliness, about wanting something real. It had to be him because who else would it be? The final bell rang and you rushed to the lockers, clutching the letter in your hand. Jungkook was there, standing casually near his locker, scrolling through his phone. You got a little confused, not knowing if he read the letter or not yet. You hesitated before stepping forward. Hey, I got your letter. Jungkook blinked, looking up from his phone. What? You hesitated, suddenly feeling stupid. The letter, you said to meet here. You held up the note, his brows furrowed. What are you talking about? I didn't write any letter. Your stomach dropped. Suddenly you didn't want him to see your letter. But it was in my locker and it said, before you could finish, laughter erupted behind you. One of his friends found your letter in his locker and he read it. So this was you, he said, reading it out loud. You swallowed hard, forcing yourself to nod. Jungkook looked at you surprised. You put this in my locker? Yeah, I thought. Laughter, low at first, then louder. No freaking way. She actually thought Jungkook wrote those letters? God, that's hilarious. Do you not own a mirror? Your stomach twisted. Jungkook stepped closer, tilting his head as he looked down at you like you were something pathetic. Listen, I don't know what made you think I would ever notice someone like you, but no one would ever look at an ugly girl like you, his friend said before he could say. The words sliced through you. Jungkook looked at you as if he felt bad, but his expression was unreadable, not something you wanted to see. Look, I don't know who gave you that letter, but it wasn't me. Why would he ever send something like that to you? They laughed again, their voices sharp, mocking. Jungkook didn't say anything, he didn't laugh, he just watched as they tore you apart, doing nothing to stop them. Your hands clenched around the letter. I see. Jungkook exhaled like he wanted this conversation to end. You should just forget about it. Forget? How could you forget the way your chest caved in, the way your face burned with humiliation? You took a shaky breath, forcing yourself to nod. Thanks for clearing that up. And then, without another word, you turned and walked away, leaving the letter crumbled in your fist. Behind you, the laughter faded, and Jungkook, for some reason, he didn't laugh with them. That evening, you lay on your bed, staring at the ceiling. The humiliation from earlier still clung to you like a second skin. You hadn't spoken a word since coming home. Not to your father, not to your mother, not even to yourself. You had never felt this small before. A soft knock on your door pulled you from your thoughts. Sweetheart, you quickly wiped your eyes before sitting up. Come in. Your mother stepped inside, concern written all over her face. She didn't ask anything right away. She just sat beside you, rubbing your back in slow, comforting circles. Rough day? You swallowed the lump in your throat and nodded. Something embarrassing happened at school. She didn't push for details. She just gave a small smile. You know, I went to that same school years ago. Your eyes widened. You did? Hmm? And trust me, it hasn't changed much. The students, the pressure, the competition, it's always been the same. She sighed. The Yun Academy isn't just about academics, it's about who's at the top, who's admired, who's invisible. You look down at your hands, then you know what it feels like to be at the bottom. She hesitated for a moment before nodding. I do. Silence filled the room. But you know what? High school isn't forever. The people who seem untouchable now, they won't matter in a few years. You bit your lip, but it matters now. She nodded in understanding. I know, sweetheart, but one day you'll look back at this and realize their opinions were never worth your pain. You sighed. And those who hurt you today? She gently tugged a strand of hair behind your ear. They'll regret it one day. Don't be too tensed about your looks. You're already beautiful. You didn't know if that was true because if it was, you wouldn't have to face such humiliation today. You didn't say anything else. Later that evening, your mother shared her concern with your father and he tried to lift up your mood, but it didn't help. Lastly, when he told you he'll take you to your favorite ice cream parlor, you refused, saying you had to complete your homework, which was surprising, but he didn't insisted and walked away from your room, giving you space. That night, the wind howled against the windows, rattling the glass like it wanted to come inside. Your parents had left earlier in the evening for a business trip, leaving you alone in the house. You tried to focus on your schoolwork, but the eerie silence in the empty house was unsettling. The storm outside grew stronger, and suddenly, the power went out. The whole house plunged into darkness. Your breath hitched as you reached for your phone, using its dim light to guide yourself through the house. You felt ridiculous being scared, but there was something unnerving about being alone on a stormy night. You decided to go to bathroom to freshen up, hoping to calm yourself down. You turned on the flashlight on your phone and stood in front of the mirror, splashing cold water on your face. You kept telling yourself it was just a storm, nothing more. But then something moved behind you. Your heart stopped, a shadowy figure. A man, his face burned and disfigured, stood right behind you in the reflection of the mirror. Your phone slipped from your hands, crashing onto the floor. A strangled scream tore from your throat as you spun around. But there was no one there. The bathroom was empty, your breathing was erratic, your hands trembling as you stumbled backward. The air felt suffocating, your legs moved on their own as you ran out of the bathroom, grabbed your house keys, and bolted out of the front door. You didn't stop running until you reached the end of the driveway, gasping for air, and that's when you saw him, Jungkook. He was standing near the street, his hair slightly damp from the rain. His eyes widened in shock as he saw your panicked state. Ryan, what happened? You could barely form words between your ragged breaths. There's someone in my house. Jungkook's face darkened. Without hesitation, he grabbed your wrist and pulled you behind him as he strode towards your house. You didn't know why, but you followed him. The moment Jungkook stepped inside, the house felt eerily silent. He carefully walked through the rooms, checking every corner while you hesitated near the doorway. He finally reached the bathroom, his sharp eyes scanning the space. There's no one here, Ryan. Your stomach dropped. No, I saw someone in the mirror. There was a man, his face was burned. Jungkook stared at you for a long moment before letting out a sigh. Are you sure you weren't just imagining things? It's dark and you were already scared. You clenched your fist, humiliation creeping up your spine. I'm not crazy, Jungkook. Jungkook raised his hands in surrender. I didn't say that. You swallowed the lump in your throat, suddenly feeling stupid for reacting this way. Maybe you really were just imagining things. The storm, the dark house, it was the perfect setting for your brain to play tricks on you. Jungkook must have sensed your embarrassment because he spoke softly. Look, I didn't come here to fight with you. You blinked at him in confusion. Jungkook sighed, running a hand through his damp hair. I came to apologize. Your breath caught. For what happened at school, for how my friends treated you. He hesitated, but also to tell you the truth, Ryan. I swear I didn't write those letters. Your eyes snapped to his. What? I don't know who sent them, but it wasn't me. Your heartbeat pounded in your ears. If Jungkook wasn't the one writing those letters, then that meant... Someone else was. Someone was secretly watching you. Your blood ran cold. The next day at school, everything felt off. You kept replaying last night's events in your head, the burnt man in the mirror, Jungkook's sudden appearance, and the shocking revelation that he wasn't the one sending you letters. If it wasn't him, then who? You couldn't shake off the uneasiness crawling up your spine, but what really startled you was when Jungkook approached you in the hallway, his face grim. Ryan, I need to talk to you. You frowned. What is it? He glanced around, lowering his voice. Did you receive any letter today? You shook your head confused. No, I didn't. What happened? He sighed before looking at you. I got one today. Your stomach twisted. What do you mean? Jungkook exhaled sharply before opening his locker and pulling out a small folded note. The moment he handed it to you, your hands felt cold. Stay away from wine. This is my last warning. It won't end well for you. Your breath hitched. You looked up at Jungkook, your pulse hammering. This is a threat. Jungkook nodded, his jaw tightening. Someone is watching us, Ryan. Your fingers trembled as you stared at the paper, the ink slightly smudged as if written in a hurry. Whoever sent you those love letters was now sending threats, and they were watching, both of you. Your stomach churned with unease. What if something happens to Jungkook? The thought alone was terrifying. You wouldn't be able to forgive yourself if he got hurt because of you. You looked up at Jungkook, panic evident in your eyes. Jungkook, this isn't a joke. What if... But he simply scoffed, tucking his hands in his pockets with a smirk. You are acting like I'm scared, Ryan. But whoever this guy is, he's just a coward hiding in the shadows. You blinked at him confused. If he had the guts, he would have confronted me directly, but he didn't because he's spineless. His confidence was unwavering, his voice firm. From now on, I'm sticking with you. Let's see if this loser even dares to show his face. His words were reassuring, a warmth spreading through you. For the first time since all this started, you didn't feel alone. You felt protected. Without thinking, you leaned in and pressed a soft kiss on his cheek. Jungkook stiffened for a second, his eyes widening in surprise. And then, whoa, look at that, he really did it. Laughter erupted around you. Your heart stopped. Jungkook's friends came out behind the walls and they all were laughing. Damn, Jungkook, you actually won the bet, man. Guess acting like the protective nice guy worked after all. Your breath hitched. Bet? Your gaze snapped to Jungkook. His face had fallen, lips slightly parted as if he wanted to say something, anything, but you couldn't hear him. The ringing in your ears drowned everything out. You never knew Jungkook was just playing a role. Pretending to be your protector, pretending to care, the warmth you felt moments ago turned into a cold, suffocating weight in your chest. Tears burned your eyes as you stepped back. Wine, wait. You shook your head. No, without another word, you turned and walked away. Jungkook called after you, but you didn't stop. You couldn't because, once again, you had been played. After school ended, you went straight home, locking yourself in your room. You didn't want to see anyone, especially not Jungkook. The betrayal still burned. The words of his friends echoed in your mind. Yes, acting like the protective nice guy worked after all. You squeezed your eyes shut, forcing back the tears. You hated how stupid you felt, how easily you had believed him, but then... A sharp, impatient sound against your front door. You ignored it. This time louder, more desperate. Fine, open the door. You clenched your jaw, not moving from your place. I know you're inside. Just talk to me. They did that on purpose. I swear there was no such bet. You didn't respond. Ryan, please, let me explain. His voice softened, pleading, but your fingers curled into fists. You weren't going to fall for his words again. There was silence for some time. For a moment, you thought he had given up until there's a letter. Your breath hitched. It's at your door from him. You hesitated before getting up and slowly walking towards the front door. Taking a deep breath, you unlocked it and pulled it open. Jungkook stood there holding a folded piece of paper. You snatched it from his hands, heart pounding as you unfolded it. Meet me at the wood shop. I'll be waiting, your secret admirer. Your fingers trembled slightly. I'm not going. I am. Your head snapped up. What? Jungkook, no, you don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was firm, eyes locked onto yours. This is the only way to prove my innocence, Wayne. I need you to believe me. I wasn't playing with you. I never lied about my feelings. You swallowed. His gaze held no hesitation, only determination. If I can protect you from this creep, will you believe me then? Your heart skipped a beat. You didn't expect this. His words, his sincerity, it was all so overwhelming. Your heart wanted to trust him, but your mind, it still refused. Evening had arrived, and the sky outside was painted in hues of deep orange and purple. The house was filled with the warm aroma of spices as you helped your mother prepare dinner. Despite your hands moving mechanically, chopping vegetables, stirring the pot, your mind was elsewhere, Jungkook. Had you really gone to the wood shop? Your heart felt restless, but you forced yourself to focus on your parents. You had to act normal. Your father, noticing your silence, tried to lighten the mood. You know, Ryan, when I was your age, I was the most popular guy in school. You scoffed, rolling your eyes. Sure, Dad, keep dreaming. Mom chuckled beside you, shaking her head. No, really, I had a whole fan club. Girls would write me love letters and then I came along and put an end to his nonsense. Your father sighed dramatically. Ah, yes, I was doomed the moment I met your mother. You smiled a little, but your heart still felt heavy. Just then, your father's eyes landed on your school bag sitting near the counter. Or rather, not your school bag. Dad's brows furrowed as he stepped closer, picking it up. Wait a second, isn't this? Your mother turned to look and her expression shifted. Oh, that's my bag. You blinked. I found this in your old closet. I really liked the design, so I used it. Mom gently took the bag from your father's hands, running her fingers over the worn out fabric. I used to carry this when I was your age, back when I studied in school. You know, Ryan, the more I look at you, the more I realize something. You looked up confused. What? Dad smiled, glancing at your mother. You look exactly like your mom when she was your age. It's like I'm seeing her all over again. Even her friends used to call her with the name we call you now. Your mother, who had been silently eating, suddenly froze. Your stomach churned. Your nickname, your looks, your school bag. Everything about you resembled your mother when she was your age, and then a terrifying realization hit you. You sucked in a shaky breath. If I look just like mom, and if everything about me is just like her, then those letters, your parents' expression immediately changed. Your father stiffened, his face darkening. Your mother's spoon clattered against her plate, her fingers trembling as she turned to your father. And for the first time, you saw fear in their eyes. Your heart pounded. Mom, Dad, what is going on? Your mother didn't answer. Her face had gone completely pale. She reached forward and grabbed the envelope from the table, the letter you had found earlier. Her hand shook as she opened it. The moment her eyes landed on the words inside, she gasped, her breath hitching. Your father immediately stood up, taking the letter from her. His expression hardened. This can't be happening again. Again, your throat went dry. What do you mean again, Dad? Tell me the truth. Your mother's eyes filled with unshed tears as she looked at you. Why, those letters, they aren't meant for you. A sharp chill crept up your spine. What? Your father clenched his fist. They were meant for your mother. The air felt thick, suffocating. What are you saying? Your mother took a shaky breath. When I was your age, I received the same letters. The room spun. You stared at her, unable to comprehend what you were hearing. Your mother, the same letters, the same warning, the same fear. But who sent them? Your parents exchanged a look, one filled with something terrifying, something they had buried for years, and then your father whispered a name you had never heard before. Your father exhaled sharply, gripping the letter as he sat back down. His face was grim, lost in a memory from long ago. Fine, when your mother and I were in high school, there was a guy named Alex. Your mother flinched at the name, her fingers tightening around the fabric of her dress. Alex was bad news. He wasn't just a troublemaker, he was dangerous, a bully, a thief, a crackhead who never backed down from a fight. Your heartbeat quickened. What does that have to do with the letters? Your dad sighed, because Alex was obsessed with their mother. Your breath hitched. He used to follow me everywhere, leave me notes, gifts, and letters, just like the ones you're getting now. She never encouraged him. In fact, she rejected him every time, but he never understood. He thought she was just acting shy, that she would eventually accept him. You swallowed hard. And what happened to him? Your parents exchanged a look. Your mom's voice was barely a whisper. He died. A shiver crawled down your spine. What? Your father hesitated before continuing. One day your mom found a letter in her locker. It was different from the others. It wasn't a love note. It was a demand. He told her to meet him at the wood shop after school. He said he was building something special just for her, that he wouldn't take no for an answer anymore. Your mother shut her eyes tightly as if trying to block out the memory. I was terrified. I knew I couldn't go, but I also knew if I ignored him again, he might do something worse. Your father's jaw tightened, so I went instead. A shiver ran down your spine. You went to meet him? Your father nodded, his gaze distant. When I got there, he was waiting. He looked furious, like he already knew your mother wouldn't show up, and when he saw me instead of her, something stabbed inside him. Your mother clutched your father's hand. He attacked your dad. Your father nodded grimly. We fought. It wasn't just a schoolyard brawl. He was trying to hurt me, maybe even kill me. I fought back with everything I had, and somehow I managed to push him away. His voice grew hoarse, but he lost his balance. He stumbled backward right into a container of highly flammable chemicals. Your breath hitched. There was an old lamp nearby. One spark and his clothes caught fire instantly. Your mother looked away, unable to meet your eyes. Your heart pounded in your chest. Did you try to save him? Your father's expression darkened. I did, but by the time I reached him, the fire had already spread. He was screaming, thrashing, but there was nothing I could do. And then he trailed off, his voice barely above a whisper. He was gone. A heavy silence filled the room. Your father took a deep breath before looking at you. That wood shop was abandoned after that night. No one ever spoke about it. The school covered it up, calling it an accident, and we moved on. Your hands trembled. But if he's gone, then who is sending these letters? Your parents exchanged a terrified glance. and that's when a chilling realization settled in your chest. Alex might be gone, but someone was still keeping his obsession alive, or maybe it was his ghost. Okay, leave this topic. Tell me, did Jungkook trouble you? Why were you guys arguing earlier? That's when it hit you. Jungkook, the ladder, the wood shop. Your heart nearly stopped. He actually went there. You had told him not to, begged him even, but he was determined to prove himself, to protect you, and now, what if something happened to him? Your stomach twisted in fear. Without wasting another second, you shoved your chair back and bolted towards the door. Why, where are you going? You didn't stop to explain, your only thought was Jungkook. Racing through the empty streets, you felt the cold night air biting at your skin, but you didn't care. The school was only a few blocks away, but the distance felt unbearable. With every step, dread pooled in your stomach. What if this wasn't just some twisted prank? What if someone was really waiting for him there? What if you were too late? As the school gates came into view, your heart pounded against your ribs. You didn't stop running. Jungkook, please be okay. As you reached the school, you sprinted towards the old wood shop, your mind racing with terrifying thoughts, but just as you reached the door, Jungkook wasn't there. Panic surged through you. Jungkook, no response. You banged against the wooden door, but just then you heard it, the loud mechanical whirring of machines. And then a crash, your stomach dropped. You took a step back and kicked the door with all your strength, and when it finally burst open, you froze in horror. Inside the wood shop, the entire room was alive. All the electrical machinery had turned on by itself. Table saws, drills, and sanders spinning wildly. But that wasn't the worst part. Varnish bottles had tipped over, their sharp chemical scent filling the air. Jungkook was on his knees, his hand gripping his throat as he gasped for air, and in front of him, the ghost of Alex. His face was half burned, the flesh melted away to reveal bone. His clothes were tattered, still marking with blackened, charred stains, his eyes black as night, locked onto Jungkook with pure rage. Jungkook looked up, coughing. And then you saw it, the iron rod in Alex's hand. Your blood ran cold, just one spark, just like how he died, and Jungkook would meet the same fate. Your breathing was racked as you stepped forward. Alex, stop! The ghost of Alex snapped his head towards you, his burnt lips curling into a smile. You came. I knew you would. You clenched your fist, forcing yourself to stay calm. Let Jungkook go. Alex tilted his head. Why? He's just like your father. He's standing in the way between you and me, just like your father stood in my way before. Your eyes widened. He took you from me, but this time I won't let history repeat itself. I'll end him, the same way he ended me. Jungkook coughed again, his body swaying dangerously as he tried to stay conscious. The chemicals in the air were making him weak. You took another step forward, desperation filling your voice. Alex, I don't love you. I never have, I never will. The smile on Alex's face vanished instantly. His entire body stiffened, the lights flickered violently. What did you say? You swallowed hard but didn't look away. I don't love you, Alex. I never did and I never will. A piercing scream filled the air. The windows shattered, the machinery sparked wildly, the woodshop trembling as if the very walls were screaming with him. Alex's form flickered. He was losing control and then he snapped. With a wild rage-filled cry, he swung the iron rod straight into the light bulb above. A blinding explosion erupted. Heat, force, and flames engulfed the room in an instant. You felt yourself being thrown backward, the deafening sound ringing in your ears. For a moment, everything went white. You were sure it was over. You were sure you were going to die. But then there was silence. When you opened your eyes, you were lying on the wooden floor, smoke and dust swirling in the air, the entire woodshop destroyed, but you were alive, and then you felt it. Warm arms around you. You turned your head and gasped, Jungkook. He had pulled you into his embrace, shielding you with his body. His face was covered in soot, his shirt slightly torn, but he was alive. You stared at him, your heart hammering. Before you could say anything, he suddenly pulled you tighter against him, his breath shaky against your neck. You scared the hell out of me. Your eyes widened. The woodshop was completely wrecked, but there was no sign of Alex. He was gone. Forever, and in that moment, you realized something. Jungkook wasn't just some classmate you always argued with. He was the one who protected you. He was the one you could trust. He was the one you... Jungkook suddenly pulled back, his dark eyes searching yours. Are you okay? You nodded weakly, still in shock. His jaw tightened. Don't ever do that again. You blinked. Do what? Run into danger like that. You almost... His voice broke slightly, and for the first time you saw real fear in his eyes. Without thinking, you reached out and gently touched his cheek, and then something changed. The tension between you two melted. All the past misunderstandings, all the fights. It all disappeared, and in that moment you both knew something between you had shifted forever, just like your parents. As you helped Jungkook up, your father and mother finally arrived, gasping as they saw the destruction. Your father's gaze softened as he saw the way Jungkook held onto you. Your mother smiled knowingly, and then you understood. This was how your parents' story began, and now it was yours too.